Okay, so welcome, Tayria Ward. I'm so glad to have you here today for the summit.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I'm so in respect and awe of what you're doing. I think it's such a great contribution to everyone.
Thank you so much. Everyone has such a beautiful message to share. It's really been wonderful.
I can't wait to hear everybody's.
Now, let me go ahead and read your bio and introduce you to everybody.
Okay.
So, Tayria Ward, PhD, holds a doctorate in depth psychology. She moved to the mountains of North Carolina from Los Angeles in 2004 to start Bridging Worlds, a retreat center. For 8 years, she conducted regular retreats exploring dreams and recovery of Indigenous sensibilities, reconnecting with the mind of nature. She led Vision Quests and Sweat Lodges. In 2012, Tayria moved to Asheville to continue the work of Bridging Worlds through a private practice using depth psychological methods to listen to the dreaming psyche. She also conducts dream groups, gives lectures, and continues offering retreats.
Yes.
Wonderful. And so the topic that we will talk about today is remembering the dream time. And this is so wonderful. I'm so excited to talk to you about it. And a little description just to give an introduction of this topic to the audience. We live on this planet within a unitive field of consciousness that certain earlier peoples named the dream time. Within this field, which we all have access to, everything human as well as non-human, visible and invisible, has consciousness and communicates constantly with each other and with us if we only remember how to listen. Working regularly with the language of dreams helps us to heal from this loss and remember our place in the web of life. So I guess to start out, can you tell us what is the dream time?
Yes. The dream time, as I experience and understand it, which the language I've found for it was offered through the Aborigines. They're the ones that use the term the dream time that I'm aware of. I think a lot of different early people used a similar term for that dimension. But as they talk about it, and as I also experience it, it's its own ontological realm. It's a realm that intersects with the realm that we live in our this time-space continuum that we call reality. But there's another realm that we are also inhabiting that we earlier, I think, as a species, were quite aware of at all times, that is a different language, a different sensibility, a different awareness than what we do in this very practical world that we're living in, where we plant the food and harvest and make our money and do our job and raise our children and that sort of thing. There is also a field of consciousness that we are forever being informed by and influenced by that we might call the dream time. And the dreams of the night are when we go into that more fully, when we relax our conscious mind and let go into this realm, then we are inhabiting the dream time. The Aborigines would say, or did say, that they feel like the Western man has gone crazy because he only dreams at night. He can't walk in and out of these dimensions the way that they do, and that they are consistently getting information and perspective and hearing the voices of the non-human world as well as the human world, and the invisible world as well as the visible world, and the world of the dead as well as the world of the living. They're in constant conversation with all of that through the dream time. The fact that we have shut that out and only basically tune into that at night, and even have forgotten the language of what we're doing at night, they think we've gone crazy, which I think that there's evidence that may be a correct diagnosis, because we're
to be affecting us physically and mentally,
Right. I mean, we're ruining the food supply, we're poisoning the waters, we're poisoning the air, letting the topsoil go, taking down the forest, which is the lungs of that the whole world needs to survive. So that I think the evidence that maybe they're right, that we've gone crazy by not remembering the dream time. is true. And I feel like the work that I've been doing over the last many years of my life has been through dreams and through working with the indigenous sensibilities to recover that consciousness, that level of consciousness, and to know how to go in and out of it while awake and asleep.
Right. And I remember reading, I think it was by Robert Wolfe, a book called Original Wisdom, about the Singoi people. I'm not sure if I'm saying the name of their people right, but they believe that the dreams we see at nighttime are reality, and our waking world is like the false, it's not quite real. So that's just incredible, kind of alongside what you said, to think of it in that way, like maybe that is actually the more important reality that we need to be listening to.
Yes, I think so. I love that. I have that book and I've read parts of it. And Michel de Montaigne, I think, is a person who said the saying, "We waking sleep and sleeping wake." Mm. And I have thought of that a lot. It's like we're asleep in a certain way as we're going around in our waking world.
Yeah.
And more awake when we're sleeping.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible. So, Tayria, how did you find yourself in this field or specialty of working with dreams?
I as a child, I had very vivid dreams. And often when I would go to school and I was sitting in my desk at school, I was more aware of what I'd been dreaming the night before than I was of the teacher. I mean, I think in a way, this was back in the 50s, there might have been a diagnosis of ADD. I don't know. But I was really thinking about what I'd experienced. It felt more real to me in this other dimension. And trying to focus on this plane was a challenge and a job for me. And so I feel like I've been there in a way all along trying to relate to it. And I realized early on that people didn't talk about their dreams, even though they were telling themselves to me and I was so aware of them. I noticed nobody else talked about them, so I didn't. So when I was 24 years old, I met a spiritual teacher who emphasized the importance of dreams and talked to us about our dreams and gave long talks, had written a book called Watch Your Dreams. And all of her students were consistently talking about dreams. And I thought, oh, my people, thank you. It's true. And it was in that, in her tutelage, we studied all the world's religions. And then I tuned back into the fact that in every scripture, in every world religion, all the world mythologies and stories, all the ancient prophets and teachers talk about their dreams. And some of the most important guidance for the village, as well as the human guidance or the revelations of how things are, have come to people in their dreams. And even modern people, Einstein got his theory of relativity in a dream, and on and on.
Wow.
So then I felt like, okay, I began to understand that I wasn't crazy by just being so consistently in that sort of dreaming time. But it is a challenge, and I think it's an important challenge. I mean, it's what we're here for, I think, to bring the worlds together and to respect each of these dimensions for what they offer us, and then understand what they don't offer us.
Definitely.
So, but when I was 40, in my 40s, I started my doctoral work in depth psychology, and mostly because of Freud and Jung's emphasis on the dreaming. Mm-hmm. So that took me into understanding it more scientifically. What they understood about dreaming, to me, was coming at it. I'd always been in more of a religious and spiritual approach to it. They bring it into a more scientific realm, and that was very exciting and interesting and important for me. So my doctoral work really enhanced everything that I cared about so much through the understanding dreams. And then I began offering retreats when I moved to North Carolina, where we talked about dreams and talked about the dream time, which I also call the indigenous mind. It's getting into the mind of how to be and think and sense the world through as indigenous people did, and the indigenous person inside of us still can and still will if we develop it.
Right.
So, and now I just have a private practice. I listen to dreams all day long, every day. So,
Wow. Wonderful. So,
yeah.
how do you find that dreams, and you've talked a little bit about this, but how do you find that dreams intersect with daytime life and practical concerns?
The dream is forever helping us to adjust our waking attitudes. If there's fear, if there's a perspective that needs clarifying, if there are relationships that are being challenging, our own personal belief systems that maybe are up for review. Um, the dream is forever trying to help us. It's I believe that the urge of the dream is always to heal and to make us whole and to remember and understand the integrity of who we are as individuals. So as Marie-Louise von Franz would say, the dream can be as practical as telling you whether to step left or step right in terms of just the basic practical things of your life, but they're also helping us to understand who we are. It's like what Jung calls individuation. It's when a cat becomes a cat and a tree becomes a tree, and when you, Jocelyn, become you, Jocelyn, instead of somebody else's idea of who you should be, which is somehow how humans have organized themselves, often in creating some other idea for who we're meant to become instead of our own selves.
Yeah.
So the dream is forever adjusting us back to who we actually are so that we can be whole and healthy in those ways. So, I mean, it can be as practical as I've known dreams that showed people how the medicine they were taking was working in their psyche and the different benefits and also dangers of it, or whether to take a job or not, or giving them insight into really the most practical areas of your life, but also getting in touch with the collective psyche, which is how we inhabit all of that, and understanding that not to take ourselves so personally, that whatever's going on for us is also in this collective mindset that we're in, to understand how we organize and respond to that. So they're very practical, and they really want to help and heal, and they're giving that divine perspective and voice into our daily concerns.
That's very interesting because, in Indigenous and shamanic practices, we believe that the universe is there to help us, that we have these helpers and guides and spirits that are kind of leading us on our path and helping us to discover what we need to see. And so it sounds like the dream world is another component of that. It's part of this universal consciousness trying to reach out and help us to find our right way.
Right. And it's interesting, and I brought out this quote that I really like, where Jung was talking about when he met the Algoni tribe, when he went to Kenya back in 1925. That was such an important trip for him, and I think it really informed his later work in a huge way. But he went to Kenya and asked everyone there how much the dreaming meant to them, how important it was to them, how much they listened to it, which was interesting to me because I went to Kenya back in the 90s and I did the same thing. I wanted to know the dreams of the white people that were there while they were in Africa, and I also wanted to hear the dreams of the Kenyan people. I was so curious, and I took notes on it, and then I found out later that Jung had done the same thing. So
wow, fascinating.
Yeah, it was very affirming for me to know, and it was very exciting to do that. But Jung wrote this about he asked the Laban, which is the medicine man, about this question, and he said, he answered with tears in his eyes. In the old days, the Laban had dreams and knew whether there was war or sickness, or where the rain comes, or where the herds should be driven. But since the whites were in Africa, he said, no one dreams anymore. Wow. The divine voice which counseled the tribe was no longer needed because the English knew better.
Wow.
And I also saw a recent film that was really well done in the theaters. It was called Embrace the Serpent. And they said the same thing. When the white man came, the dreaming stopped. So there's something we need to understand about this mentality that we're so bought into that actually stops the dreaming and arrests this connection to that divine voice. And that is, it's like we look at these machines as our entry into all things of that larger world, but we have that technology inside of us.
Yeah.
I think the machines are only a sort of a dim symbol or possibility for what we have inside of us, and shutting that down and forgetting that is tragic and possibly deadly.
Yeah, and leads to all of these different problems that we have. The as I kind of alluded to earlier, the physical and mental health problems that we face that are just were unheard of in such volume in past times. You just have to think this has all got to be connected.
Right.
Something that we're losing connection to that is causing us to suffer in this way.
Right. That's well said. I really think so too. Yeah.
I saw that on your website you had said that the work of exploring our dreams mirrors the planetary work of awakening human beings from the darkness of unconsciousness. So that that's exactly what we're talking about here. That we can, as individuals, we need to connect with the dreams. We need to connect with our guides, and our intuition. All these things are in place to help us. And then on a planetary level, on a global scale, we all need to connect. We all need to heal.
Yeah, it really is the universal language. I mean, everybody dreams,
mm-hmm.
and everybody knows what the dreaming is in their private life.
Yeah.
And the earth is dreaming. So everything is conscious, and it's all dreaming. And when we get into the dreaming psyche, we're in touch with all the peoples, but also all of the invisible worlds, and the consciousness of the rock and the plant and the tree and the sky and the air.
Definitely.
Water.
And I recently have heard of a couple of cases of it's like the earth reaching out to us. Another one of my interviews is with Dawn Brunke, as you know, and Dreaming with Polar Bears, where there are these animal spirits that are reaching out to us on behalf of the planet. And I have heard similar thing from somebody else who has had dreams of whales, that the whales are reaching out to connect with us and to try to work with us. So just incredible what's possible.
Really, Dawn's book on Dreaming with Polar Bears I read, and I think it's so important. I mean, her connection with the intelligence of these animals that carry so much important and profound perspective for us it's a beautiful thing. And it's sad when we lose it.
Yeah.
And I also had the experience at some point. I was doing a 10-day vision quest where a tree actually spoke to me.
Wow.
It broke through my autism, as Thomas Berry calls it, and asked a request of me. And it took me a little bit to figure out it was actually the tree that was breaking in this sort of dreamlike voice. And then I became quite aware that that's what it was, and I could do something to help the situation. A branch had fallen and it was uncomfortable for the tree, and it asked me to remove it.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. It's the little thing.
I got it. I heard the voices just like you do in a dream. I heard it saying, "Can you get this off?"
Yeah.
And then I realized it was a tree. So I mean, it's possible for us to be back in touch with our colleagues on this planet in these ways, and it's important that we do.
Yeah, definitely. So what would you recommend for people to begin the journey of working with our dreams? Because like I have told you, for me, I have trouble. I don't remember most of my dreams. When I remember them, they're important, but very, very rarely do I remember them. So what do you recommend for our audience that may have that same trouble?
Well, I think any dream that you do have, write it down. And then when you begin to work, it's like, there's something in writing it down, which I recommend doing it in its own journal and doing it by hand. Some people type, but I like to do it by hand, and I feel like the information of the dream starts to download. The dream might sound like nonsense, and I'll get up in the morning and think, oh, that's just a jumble. And then when I start writing it down, the coherence and the message of the dream begins to download. So that's important. And I think once you begin doing that and start to sense that there really is something there, even if you don't know what it is yet, that will help your psyche just sort of tune a little bit more into that dimension, and then help you make an intention. Each night when you go to bed, I keep a little pad and paper right next to my bed, and just looking at that pad and paper before I go to sleep reminds me to remember. And then often in the middle of the night, if I wake up with a dream, I'll, even in the dark, start to just jot down a few things that will help me pull that thread back in the daytime. And then after I awaken, before I put my feet on the ground, try to review the dream and get it really conscious. And then as soon as I can, write down the narrative of the dream. So I think writing down your dreams is really important, and then talking about them is really important with someone that you trust. I'm in a dream group that we've been doing dreams one night a week, each other's dreams for 10 years, one night a week. And it is such a profound and important part of each of our lives. I just don't think that any of us would enjoy our lives or have the same experience of our lives without that. It's just been such a profound experience. And I was in analysis for the better part of 20 years, talking every week to someone who really understood the importance of the dreaming and was helping reflect back to me. So you can do a lot of private work, but it's also good to talk to others about the dreaming. And even if you can create a containing space where you talk about it, even if it's just once a month, or, once a quarter, whatever you can pull off. But I would say just start to breathe into it and let it breathe into you, and then begin to understand its connection to what you're doing in the daytime and how it's always there for you.
Okay. Interesting. That's interesting about talking about dreams in groups. I had never really thought of that before, but I bet, is there an interesting dynamic, that forms between all of you and your dreams, over time? I would imagine that must be pretty amazing.
Well, we start dreaming for each other. It's kind of amazing. Yeah, there is, and it's the dynamic of, we hold each other in a certain kind of care, and this, and see each other in ways that I don't feel seen or understood in most of my pedestrian life. It's so powerful to be seen and known in this deeper dimensions of ourself. So yeah, it's a really important way to experience the dreaming and the reality of the dreaming. And the dream comes from the unconscious, so we really do need a reflecting partner. It's telling you what you don't know, and people asking you the right questions will help draw it out of you.
Yeah, because it's going to be the stuff that's hardest for yourself to see, like if it's coming from that side of your unconscious. Yep.
Yeah, like von Franz says, is you can't see your own back, and that's the way it's hard to see your own dream. You need somebody to hold up the mirror and show it to you.
Yeah.
So, but the work that you do on your own dreams is also always going to be beneficial too. But I would also say there are certain ethics in getting together in the dreams. And so if anybody's interested in starting a dream group, write to me, and I'll be glad to send you just some basic outline of information of how to be together in the dreaming, so that you're kind of true to the purity of what the dream is saying.
Okay. Thank you. Beautiful.
Sure. Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to ask you is, why are dreams so full of symbolism? Because it seems like when I read any books on dreams, it just seems like there's layers and layers and layers. So why is that there's so many hidden messages and symbolic messages in our dreams?
Yeah, or why don't they just speak straight English, tell us what it is, right?
Yeah.
Well, the language of the dream is a symbolic language. It is a language of symbols. So everybody in your dream is a symbol for something, as well as possibly themselves. But generally, they're a symbol of some quality or aspect, like a person who is very kind and optimistic. If that person shows up in your dream, it may be showing you that aspect of yourself or of the world that you're trying to get in relationship to. But you know, I often say if you're listening to somebody speaking Korean at the restaurant next to you, you don't understand a word of it. But once you start learning their language, you can get it. And that's the way it is with the dream. It's like all these symbols coming. It sounds like a foreign language. And how am I supposed to understand this? But once you start learning the symbolic language, the dream starts to make sense. It's coherent, and you get the language, and it's not nonsense. It's very coherent generally. And the things that seem really disconnected are quite connected once you start learning the symbolic language. You know, they say the heart speaks in symbols and images. It doesn't speak in concepts and words. And so the dreams are really the language of the heart. I mean, it's where our heart and spirit are speaking, and the mind is in service to that then in terms of helping us to understand it. But it's a language of the heart, basically, which is a language of images and the
right. Yeah.
symbols.
Yeah. Symbolism there. Yeah. Very, very interesting. So, Tayria, where do you get assistance with your dreams, with interpreting your dreams? Is it mainly from those group sessions, or do you have any other ways that you work?
Yes, it's mostly from the group sessions, but I also have trusted friends that I talk to about my dreams. It's developing that aspect in your friendships of people who are interested in having those conversations with you and are willing to explore that with you. As I said, I did dream work, I mean, with my analyst very seriously. I mean, once a week, writing down my dreams and discussing my dreams and having that reflecting partner and support and help and guidance for most of 20 years. It was, you know, it's one of the bigger investments I made in terms of time and energy and money, but it was, to me, one of the most valuable things I have ever done. And I occasionally still apply to analysts, but right now, so I would say apply to someone who really understands the dream. If you really want to have the experience of knowing that, there are lots of beautiful analysts that you can talk to, but start talking about it. I need to always be in conversation with the dreaming mind. So my main thing too is that every morning I light a candle and I write down my dreams and I think about them before I start my day.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to make the space for that in our lives, to just set aside 5 or 10 minutes, you know, even.
It's all it takes. And it just attunes you somewhat for the rest of your day and gives you something to draw from. Yeah. And it can be so surprising how then it unfolds through the day, what you were reflecting on that morning from the night. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it doesn't have to take very long. It's a matter of attention.
Yeah. Very interesting. One other little story or anecdote, I guess. I blog for the Pachamama Alliance, and they work very closely with the indigenous peoples of the Amazon rainforest. And so many of those groups are considered dream cultures. And so they will wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and they drink a certain kind of, it's almost like tea or coffee, something that a drink that has a lot of caffeine, and they will discuss their dreams in a circle. And so what they discover in their dreams from the night before is very important in defining what they will do that following day. They're looking for messages, they're looking for signs. And so if they get something that informs them not to venture out into the forest, they won't, you know, because that was a sacred message that they need to listen to. So just so interesting to me how clearly this is, you know, almost an art form, you know, almost it's just something that we need to remember and reconnect with. So I encourage all the summit attendees to follow Tayria's advice and get yourself a pen and a notebook and really try to reconnect with your dreams.
And talk about it in your families. I think if, you know, especially children, I wish as a child somebody had known to ask me about my dreams and given me the opportunity to speak of them. I think it would have been so important for me if I'd been able to speak of them, but nobody knew, of course. But I would say for children, encourage them. Did you dream last night? And then listen and don't try to dissect too much. Just let the voice of the dream be there with you. So, and with your families, yeah, I would say, like this tribe that got up in the middle of the night, I think earlier peoples did that always. They'd start the day by talking about their dreams, and then they knew what to do. But in your families, you can listen to each other's dreams. And it might only have to take 2 or 3 minutes over breakfast, but it just kind of helps you reflect a little bit on that.
That's wonderful advice, because I have like my 5-year, I have a 2 and a 5-year-old, and my 5-year-old, I'm just realizing this as we speak, all we ever talk about, we only talk about her dreams if she has nightmares.
Oh,
So what a dark way of dealing with dreams. But I bet it's that way in a lot of families, because that's the only time when it really comes up as something that needs to be discussed, you know?
Right. That's really true. That's a good point. Right.
Encourage her to talk about her good dreams.
Just the run-of-the-mill dreams. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do that now.
Yeah, good. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So, and I wanted to share, I saw this quote on your website too, and I thought this was so amazing. This was a quote from the Talmud, and it says, an uninterpreted dream is like throwing away an unopened letter from God. I think that's so beautiful.
Isn't that a beautiful quote? Yeah. It's like we're throwing away an unopened letter every morning when we don't pay attention, you know, so why would we do that?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I want to share about your free gift, because we are getting near the end of the interview time.
Okay.
So for everyone attending the summit, Tayria has a very generous offer. She wants to offer 3 free 1-hour-long sessions of dream work. So if you go to the summit webpage where Tayria's work is featured, her dedicated page, you'll be able to see a link that you can click on, and it will take you to where you can go to her website and submit for these. So she will draw 3 names. So in addition, though, Tayria will offer summit participants a 45-minute dream session for $45, which is more than a 50% discount, because her normal rate is $90 for an hour. So even if you don't win the drawing, you can still get an amazing offer from her and work with her on your own dream. So I encourage everybody to go and sign up for that. So thank you, Tayria. Is there any other, or do you have any new or most recent projects or offerings that you would want to share with the summit audience, or anything else that you would want to share in closing?
I'm doing a retreat in June. It's already full, but I'm starting up retreats again after I sold my retreat center 3 years ago. And so now I'm starting to do retreats at other people's facilities, which is new and wonderful for me too. And I also lead vision quests. So if you would like to know about my retreats or do a vision quest or discuss any of the group work I do as well as private work, just please let me know. And if you'd like to be on my mailing list, I will be informing people of when these things are going to be happening. So
sign up for her email list, because there's a lot of good stuff coming, it sounds like.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom with us here today. This has just been a wonderful, fascinating conversation.
Well, Jocelyn, thank you so much for what you're doing. I'm so impressed and excited about this summit and what you're pulling together. I really appreciate your effort and your beautiful, clear, sweet, strong voice about it all.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun and very exciting stuff. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yes.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.